So going to the very beginning, if we look at a blank screen on Claude and we want to create a piece of software, I would not necessarily do it in Opus 4.7 because you're going to use up your credits, even on a paid subscription, very, very quickly. I would put it back to Sonnet 4.6. It does equally good coding. It just doesn't do the analysis work of your business quite as well as what Opus 4.7 will do. But it is more than capable of doing that. You will need the paid version to do this kind of thing because you'll just run out of your allowance of credits really, really quickly on Claude. And it just isn't reasonable to expect that you're going to do this kind of thing and not have to pay for it. So you will have to pay for it, unfortunately. And this is much the same if you're using Coda, which is or Codex, which is part of ChatGPT, or if you're using Gemini, you will run out of your credits very, very quickly when you're creating something that's quite complex. So our little app we're going to build today is not going to be particularly hard. It's going to be a Trello. I want to build a Trello-like interface for managing my projects that are quite small. It will need to have login and accounts, and it will need to run. And this is an important distinction here in how we're going to make this thing work outside of your environment on computer in a public environment on a web server. So it will need to run on a web server that uses standard website hosting. The host I'm using is Siteground. That just happens to be one of the companies I use for web hosting. They usually use like a control panel to host, say, a WordPress website, that sort of thing. We're not using WordPress. We're just going to be putting this into web hosting. So the host I'm using is SiteGround. So I will need a MySQL database. This is the kind of average thing for most, easy to share software. And also, like, it's what things like WordPress uses to manage the data of what you're doing on your website. So I need a MySQL database, and I'll need room to grow this app in the future. Call the app ProjectX. It's just like a little name I'm going to put. You don't have to select a specific mode to go into. You don't have to go here and go, use research or a specific skill. It will find the skills it needs. So I'm just going to go like that and give it a bit of information. So I want to build something that's a bit like Trello. It has logins and accounts. It needs to run on a web server. So it's got those things. It's calling out a thing here called front-end design skill. So it's a multi-file PHP MySQL application. So it's thinking through how it's going to build this. It comes back to me and says, is this what we're looking for? Definitely looks like it's going to be right. A PHP backend, a MySQL database, Kanban, all the things that we need to do. And it's important that I said that I want it to grow in the future, because what it does, it puts in the kind of structure into its code that allows you to easily tap into new functions when you add them. And now it's building that out. It's literally building the app based upon that. Now, what does it look like? We'll see soon when it comes up. But as you can see, this one here, I just took a very default process to it. A lot of Claude things tend to come up with the Claude style. So it'll have, that sort of beigey background, some browns, some greens, some very, very, calming, neutral earth tones kind of stuff. But you can make that whatever you like, because at the same time, I'll have, something like, let's have a look. The entrepreneur mindset. So it'll build something really bright like this. So that's in my colors, in my business colors, in my business field. It's got rounded corners rather than squared corners, bright colors, and a particular font that I use, and lots of this. This is pretty much the same thing as what we're doing. It's just got some interesting things that I put in there as the result of a workshop that I may do. So you don't have to make it look dull like this. It can be a lot more bright and cheerful and colorful. You get to set those things. So I haven't specified in this ProjectX what those things will be. But if I go into one of my other projects, I'll show you how I've specified things like style. So style is just coming down to colors, style, mood, and that sort of stuff doesn't have to be in any sort of weird language. You just use standard English, but you need to know a few things like colors. If you get stuck though, go to your website, use your website address and tell it to tell you what your style guide is based upon your website. So for instance, I can look in these projects and you'll see that in my, let's see, the Darwin Innovation Hub webinar builder, I've got a style guide in here. So go down here, you'll be able to see the style guide. So it creates beautiful, interactive, highly detailed, and very engaging web-based online guides. Here's my colors. Here's my fonts. And here is some style guiding around the hero section, having a red background, and copyright information, hot linking through the Darwin Innovation Hub logo. So it will end up with something that looks a lot like this. So that is in the style of the Darwin Innovation Hub website, which is right here. You'll see same colors, same themes, same, very, very similar. So if I looked in, say, for instance, here, you're getting that feeling. And when I link through to it, it's linked to the on-time interactive guide here, and then it opens up. So it's got that similar style, so it feels like it's part of the same brand. And that's why you'll need a style guide in there. I've also included the Google code, so all the Google Analytics gets collected as well. So that's your style guide. So that's what you're going to include in there. So as we get back to ProjectX, it's still building this. It is a bit of a process. Remember, it's building an entire app. So it's not going to happen in 30 seconds. It's going to take a little bit, but it's not ridiculously long. For instance, it's not going to take us to the end of this webinar for that to show up. It will show up and I'll be able to then show you how I then deploy that. In fact, these systems are so smart now, it will tell you the instructions of how to deploy it. See how I did this? It's on Siteground standard hosting. It knows what SiteGround standard hosting looks like. It knows what the processes are to make something go live there. So it'll come back to you and say, okay, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. And once it does do this, this package at the moment is designing the Kanban view, which is, the columns that you send things from to do to doing to done. It'll do that. So as it's doing that, we'll take a look at some of the other things that I've been able to create in here. So yes, there's webinars, all that sort of thing, content generators, all that kind of stuff. Interlinked is another project I did, which was an earlier thing that I was doing to write a, here it is, Interlinked. This looks at my, my most highly, go in here, I'll show you. So it's actually looking at the posts that I do on LinkedIn and tracks them, looks at my top posts. I can click on the top post, do an analysis, and it'll tell me what worked about that top post. So it'll do a very quick analysis on there to say, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, and give me the opportunity to reproduce that post again, but with improvements that are marked against the LinkedIn engineering blogs, guidances on what makes a good post, and then also marks it against my own personal brand values that I want to do. So it tells me, were you on brand here or were you a bit off brand there? And that's where I have to set these up. So I've even got a profile in here that I can set to actually measure those things. So it's automatically got that. This is also an app that I've given other people to be able to use, and you can import your analytics from LinkedIn and mark all those yourself. One day I might expand that to something like Facebook and Instagram as well. So we'll hold on to that for the future. But here's what worked. Here's what could be better. What my brand scores were. I did okay in the best practices. Could do a lot better with the on brand. But what it will allow me to do is a rewrite with the brand recommendations, or rewrite with the LinkedIn recommendations, or do both. It also gives me some ideas for similar posts, and it helps me write them. So if I rewrite that with all the recommendations combined, it'll give me a much better post according to LinkedIn's rules and according to my brand values as well. So it's really quite nifty. This was all built in Claude. I built this 100% in Claude, and it took me about 5 hours one weekend to get it all right. Now, I also understand the fundamentals of web hosting and web design, so that makes a difference. You may not have that skill, but they're things that you can learn. And through this, you'll see how I do it. And there is the new post text that it's created for me. Mind you, it's also been trained on my values and my style of writing. So this may not sound like a good post for you, but it's very on brand for me. Let's go back to our ProjectX. So now it's actually built things out. It's saying, here's what I built. I'm now doing the README, which has got the deployment instructions, which means this thing's just about ready to go. I was going to come at any moment and show you how it's going to deploy this thing. And it's going to give me a sample of how it works on the side and show me the files that I need to download and how I need to deploy it. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is log into my web hosting. So we're going to Siteground. And sorry, you're not going to see any more logins or anything like that. Let's see the login. So web hosting is basically where you may host your website if you're not using Wix or Squarespace or one of those guys. Just plain everyday web hosting. Got a few websites on here. I'm going to do this one under learn.clickstarter.com.au. So I'm going to go into my site tools. Yours may look a bit different. It may use a thing called cPanel, which is a lot of buttons on the side that you'll operate from. I'm going to go into my file manager. Under public HTML, where all the live files go, I'm going to create a new folder called ProjectX. Okay, so that is now where it's going to live. So where it's going to live is learn.clickstarter.com.au/projectx. Okay. Now, at the moment, there's nothing there. It's just going to go a blank page because there's no files actually in there. So it hasn't got anywhere to go. So let's go to ProjectX and you'll see when I open up that particular, where is it? ProjectX, where'd you go? Oh, it's actually a file. So let me get rid of that. I did that wrong. It's supposed to actually be a folder called ProjectX. So you can tell this is not an AI presentation. So I make too many mistakes. ProjectX. So I go in there again, go to ProjectX, and it'll give me a blank page because there's nothing in there. And you see in this folder, there's nothing in there. So we're going to get all the information from this here in Claude. So it's now produced it. So it's telling me that it's got 17 files. They've all been zipped together and it deploys to SiteGround in about 5 minutes. It gives me a rundown of what it is, how it works. It doesn't use anything that's really weird to use. You don't have to install extra things into your web hosting apart from these files. Got login, registration. So what I've got to do first, it's telling me what I need to do. Upload the ProjectX folder via FTP or file manager, or upload the zip and extract it there. So I'm going to download it first. It's now on my desktop. I'm going to open up what it just downloaded and start putting it together so I can use it. Okay, I've got a whole bunch of files in there. So what they're going to do is go into my file manager here. So in my file manager, I'm going to pick up these files, which you can't see because they're not shared on the screen. And I've just dumped them in there. They're now loading into my file manager. Okay, so it's got a whole bunch of those getting in. Let's go back to our project. And it's saying, once I've got it in there, I need to create an SQL database with full privileges. Okay, so I need to go and do that. So I need to, once it's all loaded in, it is, I go over here to my MySQL and I'm going to create a new database. So create a database. Let me save the name of that database to the side. So that's the name of it. I'm just going to put that in my notes over here so I don't lose what that all is. Work, there we go. The next thing I'll do is then create a user for that database. Create the user. And then I want to manage some access. So I'll get that username. I'll put that in my notes as well. User. And then it gives me a password as well. So copy that password into my notes. And now what I do is manage access. Where does that user access? That access is going to be to the new one that I just created. New one I just created is the one that ends with GIMBI. So this one here, I want to give it all privileges. So now we know that this particular user can access this particular database. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to start to load all that together. So what I was asking you now to do is to go into my site manager again, file manager, and it's going to ask me, let's see what it says. It says, create that and now copy these to config PHP. So config sample, there's things inside there. It needs me to put into config.php. So let's look for config sample PHP in my files. Open that up. And it's going to give me this sample of everything that's got to be there. So I'm going to copy all that into config.php. So where is config.php? It's not an API, is it? Maybe what I need to do is actually create the file. This is where it can get a little bit like, oh, what are you actually going to do? So I can change that to config.php by renaming it. And then it's asked me in config PHP to put in my database details, which you can see here. So I know it looks all very codey and very scary. After a couple of goes, it doesn't get quite so scary. And then I can change things like the location of where it is. So for instance, this domain is not where it actually is. It's actually in. And click start it. A U, ProjectX. So that's right. It's in production. It's ProjectX is the name of it. That's great. So I need to now also add in my database name, which I've got from my notes. So let's grab that. Here's the database name. Now I need the database user. I don't really mind if you can see all my usernames and passwords for this because I was deleting the app directly after we finish this webinar, so it won't be live anymore. That's the user and then the password. I'll copy that in as well. And I can go save. Let's check our instructions. So open PHP My Admin, select the database and paste in database SQL. So that's saved the file. We now go back into MySQL over on the left here. As I said, it'll be a little bit different if you're using cPanel because you'll access it through a different way slightly. There you go, PHP My Admin, remembering that we're accessing the database that ends with GIMBI. So that's this one here. And it's asking me to paste in the contents of database.sql and run it. So what it means by that is it needs me to go into SQL here and paste in whatever is in that file that it asked me to. So I'm going to pop into the file manager, go into where was it? Assets. Yep. Got to find the file that it was talking about. Here it is. It was paste in database.sql. So where is database.sql? So sometimes you're going to get in here and go, I have no idea where these things are. There it is, database.sql. Someone was probably screaming in the background saying, so go here, copy that in, paste it into SQL query. And then hopefully that will work. It did. So it's actually now created the database content in there. The next step is ready and built for growth. The tables exist for the comments, the labels, all that sort of stuff. It has everything in the README file. It covers everything, including troubleshooting. So what I want to do now is go into that location where I said there was nothing before and refresh it. Probably need to clear the cache first to make sure I'm not trying to kill it. Speed, caching. This is a little trick that Siteground has that you need to clear this before you can see any of the updates you've done. There. Yours probably won't have that sort of restriction. And will it come up with anything? Yeah, there we go. So here's our login. So it's got a login built in there from another project I've already done. This is now live on the internet, so you could technically go there right now and see this as well. I don't have a login for it. So what I'm going to do is look at remember it told me to look at the README file, which is here, and that will contain the instructions on, for example, what all the logins are. So it's your domain, accessible there, done all the MySQL stuff, configure the app. So I've configured that. You can use a password generator. I'll come back to that another time. Go to MySQL, import all the data. Now I can test it, visit, see the login page, which I have. So I can register the first account. So I can create one and call my name James. Give it a password. I'll just generate one for now. Create the account. I'll make myself pink. There you go. I'm in. So add the password. I'm now into my new project management system. So I'm going to create a project, call it daily posting. I'm going to say it's about my social posts each day. Maybe give it a pink marker. And it's created a project called daily posting. I can add a card to it and say research in 2 posts. Priority is high. The date that it's due is the 17th. Add the card. And I've now created a task. And that task should allow me to drag and drop things into other locations. So I can open it, add some description in there, and drag it over to done if I need to. So this is a really basic web app, but that's now working live on the internet, and we've been online for, gosh, 25 minutes. So 25 minutes I've carried on. I've introduced myself. I've logged in, typed in some things, shown you some examples, and actually deployed a live app. Now, I need to do some security checks in there. There were some things in the README file. If I bring that README file up that I have to do to make it secure, like this app secret in there. So I need to change that to something much, much longer to secure that app. So, but for now, though, I have a working, living, breathing Trello clone. One of the most simple things you could clone and do yourself. Now, does it do everything that I want it to necessarily do? I look in this card, I want to add in comments. I want to add in updates. I want to add in, people that it might be allocated to, that kind of thing. If I want to add that, I just go back to my original project and I say, now add the ability to see, to add comments, add updates to a card and see previous updates in a list. And I also want to add ability to allocate a person to a card or to add them as a member of a project and be invited by email. And then let Claude Sonnet go off and build that. We are essentially now building additional features in there. I asked it originally to build this in a way that I could add more features nice and seamlessly. So it said, yep, you've already done this. So now it's doing a little bit of research on what it needs to do. It has everything it needs. It's got a card API. So it's actually built in the ability for it to be able to create separate little mini apps within it that tie in through an API connection or application programming interface to be able to talk to those different parts, and now built it. So what we'll do at the end of this is give me a whole extra lot of files that I'll copy in over the top. So I get it right over here. I can test it somewhere if I really want to in another folder somewhere, make sure it all works before I then go, okay, copy all that over and refresh. And I've got the new files operating. Congratulations. In 28 minutes, you just become a software developer. That's it. We literally built an app. Very simple app at that. But it could be a calendar, it could be a reminder, it could be something which ties in and helps you write your content with the help of Claude. So I've got things like, for instance, my interlinked that is actually tied in. These written responses all come from the fact that it uses Claude to do this. So that's something you can tie into as well, using AI to build AI apps, which sounds weird, but that's what you can do. So does this look familiar to you? Does this look really, really achievable to you? Remember, it just took standard web hosting, which not everyone I know is across all that. As another webinar for another day of how to get used to web hosting, but it gives you a start. It gives you a real start where you can go, okay, this is something I think I really want to do. And you can end up in 25 minutes with your own app like that. Spend a few more hours, you end up with something that looks more like this, although this is all automated now for me. Interlinked overall took me about 5 hours to build, and Content Engine was it was only about 3 to 4 hours for this one because I really knew what I wanted for it. And I just needed to sort of play around with some of the features that it has and how I want to work from one thing to the next. The deploying of it for most of you, because you're building something for yourself, will just be on standard web hosting. But let's say, for instance, you want to build something out that's a bit bigger that other people will use. Interlinked has about 10 users on it at the moment. Content Engine's just me. So this one, I still run very easily on standard web hosting. But if you do get to the point one day where you're selling this software and it's getting lots of users, you would then move on to something like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud, something like that. That's a bit more able to handle a lot of people on there at one time. That's it. Nothing more fancy than that. You're building a web app. There will be a recording of this, which I'll be putting on the Darwin Innovation Hub website in the next couple of days. So you'll be able to see this, also available on YouTube under the Darwin Innovation Hub YouTube channel. On my own, just search for Dante St. James and it'll be there as well. That was a really speedy way of looking at creating apps. There's obviously a million different things you could do, but also a lot of security things you need to be aware of. We will look at some of that when we do some more advanced versions of this in the future. For now, though, I'm Dante St. James. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.